Weema wecka 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 weema. Sorry. Hi. O'Keefe present and accounted for. Where the Mountain Meets the Moon, chapters 45 and 46, I hope, today. Oh my gosh, we are flying right now. Welcome, 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 one and all. It is great to see you. I missed you on our time away. I love King Junior Day. I love a saying that I believe has been going on here in America for MLK Day for a very long time. It is not a day off, rather it is a day on. I was gone yesterday being of service. I just decided to go and spend a little time in neighborhood gully that I've told you a little bit about, and kept taking out invasive you're in. Now there are and not run amok. Plants that will be able to grow really well in your area, but it has no natural predators, it has no way to control, and therefore there is this problem because they begin to crowd out. They begin to crowd out native animals. They begin to do things that they are not supposed to be doing in your region, and so they become out with invasive means. I want to say that in some ways the green tiger was invasive, out of place, without any real protection except for the smart children that came around in there. It is a pleasure to be with you. I did want to say another thing. I want to point this out to you. That is a really important symbol as far as literature goes in our country, and if I'm not mistaken, in English-speaking countries. But this is the Newbery Award. That's the silver one. You probably have seen the gold one as well that says Newbery. Honor award means that it is worth reading. There is a group of people who feel that it is cultural, believe that it has significance to either the story itself, people it represents, the author's achievement and skill. And don't deny has been such a wonderful book to read, right? We are getting closer. I'm not going to tell you how much closer. We are getting real close, like real close that you better be coming back in the otherwise you're going to miss the end of the book. Okay, so anyway, ladies and gentlemen, when I saw you on Friday, right, last time we were together, Minli was put into a terribly difficult position, leads her to the gate, right? The rabbit leads her to the opening where a man is seated, has something very important in his lap, and by all these little tiny figurines. And do you remember what's connecting all of those figurines? Red thread. So he had just finished something. He welcomes Minli and says, 99 years. Somebody who comes and asks their essential question. Now you remember, Minli had an essential question before she left her home. How can I improve the fortune of my family? But then as any great adventure goes along, she runs into friends who help her along her way and sacrifice who and what they were doing in order to help her, because it seems to be a very important and great adventure, right? And that was Dragon. Dragon had a little bit of a problem. Dragon was different than all these, and he was unable to do something that most dragons should be able to do, leaving him stuck. I'm not going to go into that because you got to go and make sure you remember, right? Because my job is just to kind of unlodge some of these things that may have been stuck in the back. Dragon's too big to cross the bridge, unable to answer or ask his own question for himself, which he was hoping to be able to do. And Minli is put into a terrible position to know that she has one question. And the big question was, is Minli going to question? Or is Minli going to help her friend and ask his question, right? And she ended up doing one of them, right? You know what I'm talking about. Those of you who have been on there. Whoop, whoop. Okay, so here's the deal. I'm sure that you remember that last chapter that we read and kind of where we're leading. We begin chapter 44. Doesn't look like we're up the mountain anymore. We're kind of down below. Is that Fruitless Mountain? Is that Never-Ending Mountain? We're going to have to find out. Remember how I've been teaching you every time we do this. Remember, pay attention to who gets introduced as the characters. Right? That will remind you of where the story is and probably what the setting is and how you should be feeling, right? Things happen as you keep growing. Okay, chapter 44. I'm excited. Ma continued to wait for Minli quietly and sadly. Even though they told themselves that they Minli and believed that she would return, Ma spent most of her time looking out the window, lost in. While Ba grew older and grayer each day Minli was gone. The only time in the escape of Ba's tales, they could forget he was not with them and imagine that she was sitting right there listening. And perhaps she was. One evening, the moon filled the sky. Ma spoke. Husband, she said, tonight, I'd like you to tell. I'm sorry. I became so used to it. Hold on. Husband, she said, tonight, I would like to tell you a story. Ba realized, but nodded. The story that Ma told. There was a woman who had a kind husband and a beautiful daughter. A great mountain shadowed their home, land that they lived on poor and their house small. But there was always enough to eat, and the water always flowed in hot. A fire always burned during the cold ones. Yet the woman was not content. The woman begrudged the meager land and swallowed her plain rice with bitterness. She frowned at the humble cotton of their clothes and at the tight rooms of their house. Day after day after day, grumbled. When she heard stories of treasures of gold and jade, she was filled with envy. Why do we have nothing? She sulked in frustration. We have no treasures, no fortune. Why are we so poor? Her husband harder every day, hoping to bring wealth to their home. But the unfeeling land did not cooperate, and the house in clothes stayed modest, and there was always just enough rice for the three of them. The woman also remained unhappy. Her displeasure grew like weeds, uncontrollable and tame. The woman was so caught up in her dissatisfaction, she did not realize that she was planting seeds of discontent in her daughter. Until then, her daughter had been pleased with their life, but now she began to feel troubled. The rice that began to taste bland. The clothes that she had liked for their colors now felt rough, and the house that she had run free had become stifling. Finally, unable to bear the growing frustration, the daughter stole away in the midst. vowing not to return until she could bring fortune back to her family. And it was only when she saw the stupidity of her behavior. For without her daughter, the house became too large and too empty. And she was the extra rice. Excuse me. As the days passed in loneliness, fear, and worry, the woman cursed herself for her selfishness and her foolishness. How lucky she had been. She was at last able. Daughter's laughter and love could not be improved by having the finest clothes or the nicest jewels. They had been in her home like a gift waiting to be opened. The woman wept her tears, for which there was, for all the time that she had been longing for treasures, she had already had the one most precious. Now wiser, the woman could do nothing but go to her husband, beg for forgiveness for her actions, someday do the same with her daughter. She did not know if she would receive compassion from either, but she vowed that she would, if necessary, she would wait like the mountain that shadowed them. That's the end of Ma's story. Whose story really was it? It was Ma's story. Do you see how literal? It's Ma's story. Ma realizes the life that she had chosen. Remember the joy and the happiness when Ba and Minli would tell stories early on? And do you remember what Ma did? She was ungrateful for what they had, the simplicity of what they had. And now, Minli, she realizes that she really had very little. Hello, Matt boy. Good to see you, brother. So I love this moment. I love that we and recognize that Ma learns from her mistakes, right? This is a huge piece to this. So there's a little but in me that there's a little bit back in this moment. As Ma finished, she sat herself down at Ba's feet and, child, she placed her head in his lap. Husband, she said, I've said it was your fault and I was wrong. I am to blame. Minli knew I was discontent with our fortune. If I had not been, it's my fault, Ba. Ba couldn't speak. The moon outside was so full as if it would burst, and moistness dampened his eyes. He placed his hands tenderly on Ma's head. Good, the fish said. If you make happy those that are near, those that are far. Ma's head raised in jerk. Ma's head raised in a jerk. At the fish, and then looked at Ba, her eyes wide. Did the fish just say something? She heard it. She heard it. Oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh, oh my gosh. Ooh, I see a bridge. I see something crossing the bridge. Is it going which direction? Is it going direction it's going? What is that? Is that never-ending mountain or is that the land? Is there a dragon? There's a dragon. Chapter 45. The dragon waited. Mornings rose, nights fell. Move from that bridge. Every night the stars filled the sky like snowflakes falling on black stone and then melted away as the sun mounted. When the sun rose, the red strings of the bridge melted into the sky and the to disappear, only showing itself again at night. A stinging wind blew in a silver mist. Cold rock was hard and unyielding. Still, the dragon waited. But just as the moon began to slip down in the sky, Dragon saw a faint figure on the bridge. With a joyous roar, roar! That's like Chewbacca. in Star Wars, right? Like when Chewbacca would yell for Han Solo, I always loved that moment, right? The joyous roar, the dragon jumped up and the figure became clearer and clearer. Minli, your dragon shouted, did you see him? Did you ask the old man of the moon my question? Yes, yes. After she hugged the dragon, I asked him and he answered. So now I know. I know. How? How? The dragon asked. Minli climbed onto the dragon's back. With both hands, she clenched the ball above his head. Take a deep breath, she said to him. And with a jerk that took all her strength, she yanked the ball off his head. Oh! The dragon yelped. But then, I feel so light, he said. So light, so peaceful. The old man said you would not be able to fly until the ball was removed from your head. Minli told him. He said it was weighing you down. Was. Dragon laughed, and Minli clutched his neck with her spare arm as he rose into the air. The wind their whoop of laughter and sweep them up into the sky as the dragon flew for the first time. The silver embraced them, and then they parted as the dragon flew through as in the sky. The pale moon looked as if it were smiling at them with a soft glow. As they skimmed the stars, Minli with absolute delight. As they returned to the ground, the dragon asked, what about you? Did the old man tell you how to change your fortune? Minli was silent. Dragon turned to look. Hold on a second. I can't get into this part. I can't stop the joy of what it must have been. Why? I wonder if it's the same joy that I'm starting to get now that I'm learning math from Miss Bishop and Miss Miller, helping me understand math better than I ever understood it in 5th grade before. And I'm feeling lighter. I'm feeling like it's making it easier when I'm working with students. They're not sure if they like to read very much, and then we kind of help them figure out books that they will enjoy in their zone, in their level. And you see them kind of get this nut away from them, and they have this lightness about them. They realize their joy. They realize the freedom in their learning. Megan seems to have learned that as well, but it took 2 really important things to happen. You remember it was one of the first things that he had a big stone kind of like in his forehead, right? A big round stone. So we've known that it's there. It was right in front of time. But it took Minli taking the risk to go. And then it took Minli willing to put her desires aside and ask for her friend. And then it took strength from Minli to be able to get that thing out. Has that happened? Fly! Oh, could you imagine what it felt like to fly? Oh, amazing. I'm sure you've had some sort of experience. Okay, so let's get back. You know, the beautiful thing is as soon as Dragon didn't just take off all over the place either, did he? Dragon decided to come back down to earth after having a small, short, and then he turned his desires into finding out whether Minli got her wish, right? Whether Minli was her question. So let's go back to that. What about you? Did the old man tell you how to change your fortune? Silent. Dragon turned to look at her. What happened? He asked. He did not tell you? Minli said. I was only allowed one question. What? The dragon said. Oh, you have come all this way. We will fly back and you can ask him. Before Minli could utter a protest, the bridge seemed to shriek. And as they turned to look at it, the bamboo stakes began to rip out of the ground, leaving an ugly. It was dragged away from the land. The bridge jerked violently, the bamboo supports clattering as it was pulled up into the distance for another 99 years. But you, your fortune, your parents, it's all right, Minli told him. When it was time, I suddenly saw I didn't have to ask. You didn't have to ask? The dragon said. No. And suddenly, memories rushed through her. She heard the buffalo boy's laughter as he refused, saw the king's generous smile as he willingly parted with his family's treasure, and remembered Da'afu's laughter. Why would we want to change our fortune? They had said. She had shaken her head in confusion. Finally, Minli understood all of it. Fortune was not a house full of gold, but something much, much more. Something she already had and did not need to change. I didn't ask the question, said again and smiled, because I don't need to know the answer. Yes, of course. Great stories, a loving family, place to rest your head, food in your belly, some water. Really, what is much more than that? The story, the guy who's still chopping the wood down, more. Is he ourselves right now? Mag drawing, Oli probably doing some drawing, my friend T and her friend listening over at school. I know these things. I'm watching you. Matt boy popping in and then disappearing out. I'll take his moment. Why would we want to change our fortune? We saw all these moments. We saw the buffalo boy say he didn't need the fortune. We saw Da'afu say that. We saw the king give away freely what was supposed to be clung to, right? Because I didn't need to know the answer. Boy, that made her ask. Boy, I was all crying because she was so up, but she got her answer, didn't she? She got her answer, and so she did the next best thing, which is call out. What's up with Dragon? All right, 22 minutes. We've got a giant, squiggly Chinese. Luca talks about how beautiful they are. Very different. Now, yes, they can kind of have that growly look like some of ours, but you know, dashes, and they have these long eyebrows and horns and stuff. I wonder what the difference is. Chapter 46. The moon began to fade as the brightening sky revealed itself. The sun was awakening, and Minli wanted to return home as soon as possible. Dragon, 3 days and nights, rule of 3, having waited 3 days and nights, was well rested. So the never-ending mountain at once. As Dragon soared through the sky, any heaviness inside Minli left him. He seemed to dance in the air, and his happiness made her feel as light as the clouds around her. It seemed to warm her heart, and joy bubbled inside of her. She knew she had asked the right question. Before they left, Minli and the dragon circled over the village of the moon rain. Da'afu, Ama, and the villagers saw them and ran out of their stone hut, flapping their ruined sleeves in greeting. "Don't stop!" shouted with a broad smile. "Go home!" Minli nodded and waved goodbye until the flowering trees looked like strokes of golden paint on the mountain. Flying on, the dragon made traveling much, much faster. It seemed as if in no time they were above the city of bright moonlight. From the sky, the inner city and outer city grids looked like labyrinths, and the 2 stone guardians looked as if they were dog trinkets molded from the clay. Minli saw Buffalo Boy's broken down hut, but no glimpse of him. Squiggly writing. He's probably inside. Minli thought, wondering if the goddess of weaving had visited the previous night. But as they passed the bay of water by the city, Minli saw something strange, like an orange shadow streaking across the sky. Dragon saw it too and began to slow down. It got closer. There was no mistaking it. It was another dragon. The dragon was orange, color of the inside of a ripe mango. When she saw Minli and Dragon, a coquettish smile across her face. Coquettish? That's a great word. I'm going to find out if that means something good or bad. But it was not a frown, not a glare, not a growl, not that. It was a coquettish smile. Coquettish. When she saw Minli and Dragon, a coquettish smile spread across her face. Hello, the dragon breathed in an odd voice. Minli looked at him in surprise. But the orange dragon kept. That was not the new dragon. Did you notice that we have a she here? Hello, dragon breathed in an odd voice. Minli looked at him in surprise. The dragon kept flying without saying a word. As she passed, she winked at them. Dragon balanced in midair, and he watched the orange dragon sweep down and away to the water below until she was a ginger speck in the distance. Are you okay? Minli asked the dragon as he continued to stare. You must be excited that you finally dragon. I am, Dragon said, as if in a daze. Then he shook himself as if trying to rouse. But I will find her again later. I will bring you home first. He shrugged. Dragon was acting odd. But there was something familiar about that orange dragon. Perhaps scales reflected in the sun like fish scales glistening in the water. And those knowledgeable eyes. No, she knew her. Minli smiled. Are you hearing it? Are you hearing it? Do you know? Orange eyes sounding a little bit like somebody she knew, with dragon scales that reminded her of fish scales. That's what I'm talking about. Sorry. Hours passed, and the land below them blurred. Excuse me. Minli slept on and off. The smooth ride of the flying dragon made it easy for her to sleep. He was impressed by how far that they had journeyed and how much faster they were able to travel by flying. The sun was only beginning to go down past they saw the edge of the peach forest. The tops of the peach trees seemed to sway a welcome to flew overhead. And as they continued to fly, Minli thought she saw the monkeys still attached by the fishnet around the pot. They're still trying to get it. But Dragon was still acting strangely. When Fruitless Mountain, with its familiar peak cutting into the pink and orange sunset sky, came into view, the dragon almost stopped flying. What mountain is that? He asked Minli. It's Fruitless Mountain, Minli told him. Right beyond it, next to the Jade River. Fruitless Mountain, he said to himself. And even though he continued to fly, he seemed to be in a daze. Flying had somehow made him lightheaded, but her attention could not be kept by her concern for him. Night was falling. The Fruitless Mountain softened in the shadowy sky, but Minli could still see that every moment, the river and Fruitless Mountain closer. She was almost home. However, when they reached Fruitless Mountain, stopped. He dropped lightly to the base of Fruitless Mountain, where so long ago Minli had taken some stone to make her compass. This is Fruitless Mountain, Dragon said. And again, Minli looked at him. He was definitely acting ordinary. Yes, Minli said, a bit puzzled. My village is just a bit past this. I can walk from here if you wish. Do you mind? The dragon asked. For some reason, I feel as if I don't want to leave here. Mind, Minli said. Are you all right? The dragon looked at her and smiled. Yes, Dragon said. I feel like I'm home. Minli wrinkled her forehead in confusion. Wrinkled, like, okay, that's not, oh, or I called your home. The dragon said, strangely, I feel like I am home. Minli wrinkled her forehead in confusion, but was too eager to go to her parents and ask more questions. Minli hugged Dragon goodbye. He returned her hug. You could tell he was distracted. She held out the round ball that she had taken from Dragon's head. You want this? Dragon glanced at it absent-mindedly. You can have it. Minli shrugged again, but the urge to go home began to pull at her strongly. She waved goodbye to Dragon and began to run toward the village. It was late at night when she finally reached. The slumbering village was completely silent. And as Minli crept into her home, the pale goldfish greeted her. Shh. The goldfish said, your parents are sleeping. Welcome home. Minli was a goldfish, but smiled a greeting. Moonlight misted over the rough floors and made the sparse room grow silver. The goldfish bowl looking like a second moon. The shabby walls and worn stones seemed to shimmer as if an silk veil covered them, muting any flaws and transforming the house into a dwelling of luminous light and depth. Minli had never seen her home look that beautiful ever before. Tiptoeing, and the dragon's stone on the table, and went into her room. Smiling, she climbed into her bed and went fast to sleep. Oh, okay. What is that stone going to be? You know what else I was thinking about? Do you remember a little friend of hers that helped her begin her journey? You know, the one who gave her the idea of creating the compass. You know, the one that she happened to pour into the river. You know, the one that maybe, just maybe, for some bizarre too surprised, might be an orange figure that we just met in the last chapter as they were flying home, that Dragon was so dumbfounded by. But you know what I was thinking? Do you remember what happened when Minli dropped that particular friend into the river? All of a sudden it started talking, right? What happened when she first entered her home? She was welcomed by another goldfish, but they hadn't had that goldfish before she. It was the whole reason why she left. She felt bad about spending her money or one of her coins, right? And then you notice what happened to her house? It's the same house. It's the same house. But what did the moon do to it? She saw it as luminous and silvery and colorful and beautiful. So home. But the fish did say, your parents are sleeping. But I want to tell my mom and dad right now, and any parents who happen to be listening when they're getting all worried that their kids are getting too old too quick, don't worry. You love them the right way. Not too tightly. You cling to them, you'll lose them. But not too tightly. Come back. They are not going to wait to give you a big old hug and a big old kiss and say, I'm home. I know how you're feeling right now. My mom thought the same thing. But guess what happens every time I go home? And I'll do it every single time. My house looks luminous in the light. My house looks wonderful. Now, of course, I don't usually show up but I have in the past. Anyway, tomorrow we finish the book. So you better come back. You're not going to want to miss this. Not when we're reading it live, because it's so much fun. I want to say welcome back to your day. Welcome back to your week. It's going to be an amazing week. I can feel it. Remember what happens in your week, the goods, the bads, the uglies, the beautifuls. Hopefully you have somebody to share them with. One of you will figure out how your wings work and you'll end up flying. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I've kept you about 6 minutes too long. You know how I like to talk a little bit. But ladies and gentlemen, come back for the exciting conclusion of Where the Mountain Meets the Moon tomorrow. Minli's home, but she ain't done yet. I love you. Thanks for being here. Let's read some more. Go find another book you love. I love you. Now, get out of here.